Hello, my dear students. This is a brief about nuclear radiations. You might have heard about many applications of radiations, ranging from medical to industrial, safety, security, and other applications which might even be attributing to environmental aspects. Through this presentation and through your visit, you would be able to know more about nuclear radiations, how they are detected, how do you get to know them, what are their advantages, and how do you protect yourself from the harmful effects. As we go through this presentation, you will get to know about some of these, and you can explore more once you are there in our campus. These are some of the very elementary questions that might come to your mind. What is nuclear radiation? And for that, some of you might definitely give some very good answers in terms of what type of radiations you encounter around yourself. Where do they come from? The origin, that might be from atmosphere, that might be from radionuclides, that might be from materials. Lot many answers. Are they safe or harmful? Some of you might say they are harmful, but we are living with them since years, and yet we are able to grow and develop. It seems they are more towards safe. But yes, we know instances when they were very harmful. So, where do we stand? Whether it's safe or harmful, we can only say that once we are able to detect that. How do we do that? And for that, you would be there in our facility to know what type of detectors we are using to detect these radiations or these unseen monsters, if you might like to say them in that order. Now here come answers to some of the questions that were posed. What type of radiations? That might be alpha, beta, gamma. But why are they emitted? We are very comfortably sitting there around some very stable radionuclides. But from where does radioactivity come into picture? We can see here some wonderful colors coming out. Blue, black, pink, yellow. What are they telling us? Maybe the key on the right tells us something about them. The black zone, which is not very interesting here, looks more stable. And as you move towards different wonderful colors, we see different things happening, like electron captures, some betas being emitted, some alpha particles being emitted. There might be some unknown radionuclides also present. So, if you count, there are more than 3,000 radionuclides that are there. You might see isotopes, you might see isotones, you might also see isobars, all existing. What is the reason for them to exist like that? What is the motivation for them to be existing in a particular state? That's because of their neutron to proton number. The N by Z ratio is very important here. And you can see from this plot that as you go towards higher and higher radionuclides, any stable entity would like to have more number of neutrons as compared to protons. That's how they stabilize themselves. Now the picture is becoming much more clear to us. We see here some prominent radioactive decays, alphas, betas, gammas. And how do they work? An alpha, which will be emitted once you have an helium nuclei emitted from a heavier element. A beta particle, when one of your neutron changes to a proton or a proton changes to a neutron. That's when energetic electrons are emitted from the nucleus. And a gamma radiation, when your nucleus de-excites to the ground state. was having some excess energies and it wanted to emit that out. And who discovered all this? Yes, that's Henry Becquerel. Back in 1800th century, he discovered all this, that nuclear radiations are emitted. And see, we know this very well now. And what does your nucleus comprise of? Electron, proton and neutrons. Electrons are revolving around the nucleus. So it was Rutherford who told us about how does our nucleus look like, whether it is a plum pudding model or something else. And how do you say or how do you show that a radiation is present? With the help of this beautiful symbol. Looks like a little scary, but yes, it's going to tell you that, be aware, there's something radioactive here. Stop, look, and then only proceed. So we want to know a little about these radiations. But are these harmful? Where do they come from? And see, you can see the entire range of electromagnetic spectrum in front of you. We have both ionizing as well as non-ionizing radiations which are seen here. And we are using them daily, every minute, every second around us. And yet, we don't see any defects in us. So, there are plenty of applications of radiations in our daily life and we are living with it successfully. That's because we are taking all precautions to ensure that their damages are not significant. Now, how can we be sure that whenever you are having radioactivity around, it's not causing you harm? So here we can see a chart of doses that we take up and the effects that might be produced. So even when you take up a normal X-ray, that might be for examining your tooth, that might be for examining your status of the chest, we are taking exposures, we are getting radiation doses, but they are not significant enough to cause you any damages because they have been devised in such a way that they are given to you in the minimal form. So the principle that we follow here is LRA, as low as reasonably achievable, and that we do with the help of the time, distance and shielding method. So you give minimal time in front of the radiations, you employ the maximum distance possible, that might be with the help of the inverse square law method, and you have appropriate shielding employed to ensure that you don't get any excess dosages in case you cannot reduce the time and the distance method. But of course, you cannot reduce the radioactivity levels to zero because it's an exponentially decaying. So you have to ensure that we follow the time, distance and shielding method as dedicatively as we can. And we can be safe enough. So if you want to stop alpha particles, for instance, just a piece of paper that would be sufficient to stop them. If it's beta, we would still like to have some more thickness employed to make sure that those particles are not entering further. But if it's gammas, you would require some good amount of lead to ensure that it is stopped. But yes, if you have all these things in place, you're safe enough to deal with them. And see, we have given you a result which we did in the laboratory to show that as you move away from radiation, the dosages that you get are reduced. So the intensity of the radiation which is seen in the detector as you move away from it keeps on reducing, and that can be seen by the plot which is kept in the center towards the bottom part of the slide. See, this is how it looks like. As you move away from the source, you keep your detector away and away, you see that the intensity of the radiation detected is reducing appreciably. So that's what is implied by using the distance method of protecting yourself. And as in when you keep on increasing the distance, the dose that you get would be reduced. So it's definitely a safer way to protect yourself against any unnecessary radiation. So keep away from the sources of radiation as far as possible. That might even be your mobile phone. Now, since we have talked about dosages, we have talked about radioactivity, we have talked about exposure, how do you measure them? There must be some standard units which are available. So, radioactivity will be measured in terms of Curie or Becquerel, attributing to their discoverers. These units have been devised. Exposure will be in terms of Roentgen or Coulomb per kilogram. Dosages will be in radiation absorbed dose rads or in the SI units like Gray. And a very easy conversion exists for the older and the newer units. Now when we are taking them in terms of the exposures that are seen to people who are getting it or to certain organs, you always talk in terms of equivalent dosages or effective dosages which are given to any particular organ or organism, and that we measure in terms of REM, that's radiation equivalent in men, or in terms of sieverts. It's a more standard unit of it, and that's how we can easily quantify what energies are deposited in what organs and how damaging that can be. So easy quantification. Now comes the most interesting part of it. How are you going to detect them? And are we having those detectors in our lab to make sure that you see them? Yes, of course. See, we have a range of detectors available with us. And what they're doing, they're going to tell us how much radiation is present around you. So we can start with very simple gas field detectors like the GM counters, which are on simple ionization and their multiplication based. And we can move forward with a bit more specialized and specific detectors like scintillation detectors that you can see here, which might even tell us what energy is incident. And then we can have much more precision in terms of detecting how many sources are present or how many energies are present by using semiconductor detectors. That's silicon surface value detector, which you can see here. And some of the electronics which will be required for us to process these signals is also shown here. And with these equipment, you can detect alpha, betas, gammas, neutrons, any type of charged particles. So once what was an unseen monster now appears to be something which can be seen, quantified, detected, and we can be cautious about its existence, right? We have a plenty of them, but we are also upgrading our labs. So we would be having facility to make sure that you can use these detectors, you can do up these experiments from the comfort of your home, and that would be with the help of remote laboratories. So you can sit at your place, we will give you a VPN, and you can do the experiments from the comfort of your home. Some of the detectors that we'll be employing here are scintillation based detectors, high purity germanium detectors, GM counters. All of them will be there just on the click of a button, easily accessible. And you can see how beautifully we can detect, we can quantify, and we can also suggest for shieldings that are most suitable in certain radiation environments. Presently, we are also having some radioisotope identifiers. So those are handheld devices which can be easily taken over to places to make sure that we can detect radioactivity anywhere around. And these are like real-time gadgets. You can see radiation incidents, their quantities very beautifully and very efficiently. And you can see them even in terms of brilliant colors. So you don't have to deal with black and white arrangements. We have everything available in our lab. Once you're there, ask your instructor about all of them and how they're working. So there are symbols to depict there is presence of radioactive material and substances around you, which you have seen in some of the previous slides as well. But there are some amendments which were suggested by the International Atomic Energy Agency in conjunction with the International Organization for Standardization that says that apart from the traditional trefoil symbol which we have, we might also include symbols something like danger or presence of radiations and indicating people to go away from these sites in different colors that might be used to indicate the intensity of sources that are present. This would be all from our side. We welcome you to our institution, and we also welcome any questions and comments that you would like to make. We are happy to have your suggestions. We are happy to have your questions. Feel free to get in touch with us and to ensure that you get the best out of this visit. Thank you so much.